So, today's lecture is regarding higher education accreditation. We're going to learn about the benefits, we're going to learn about the process, and we're going to learn about some unique features about higher education accreditation in the United States that aren't necessarily observed in other countries. So, before we get started, I want you to think about something. Think about the last big purchase that you made. Go ahead and get that in your mind. And after you've identified that, what were the variables, what were the characteristics of that purchase that were important in making the decision? Maybe it was price, maybe it was quality, maybe it was proximity or timeliness. Lastly, how did you know that what you purchased, whether it be the product or an investment, how did you know it was quality? Quality is really the crux as to why we have accreditation in post-secondary education. It's one thing to say that we provide a quality education to our students, that we provide quality research or quality service, but it's another thing to be able to affirm that. And that's really what accreditation is. So when you think about accreditation, there's a few key takeaways. It's completely voluntary. Unlike other nations, in the United States, it's completely voluntary. You do not have to participate in it. And that's both institutional and programmatic. Now, there are some benefits to your participation. One, it's going to make you eligible to provide Title IV federal and state financial aid to your students. And if you think about the number of students that use financial aid, especially need-based aid, it's almost a no-brainer that an institution would participate. The latest statistic that I saw was that about 70% of students use some form of financial aid, whether it be Pell Grants, Stafford loans, work study. So in order for an institution to have a main revenue stream in contemporary higher education, you need federal financial aid. It also helps with the transfer of credits. If I study at one institution and they're accredited, then it's highly likely that those credits will transfer. And then it provides a level of employer confidence. If my new employee graduated or my prospective employee graduated from ABC University and they're accredited, then we know that they received a quality education. Now, it is a very arduous and resource-intensive process. It involves a lot of individuals throughout your institution and maybe and even beyond your home institution, even branch campuses. They're all involved in this process. When I talk about resource-intensive, I'm also talking about the amount of time that must be given to this. You have 2 or 3 employees that it almost becomes their full-time job, as well as other employees who are working at about a 20% pace the closer you get to your review on accreditation. And it's quite expensive. If you know through a self-study that you are deficient in a standard or two, then it does take time and it does take money in order to get you to the position you need to be by the time your review takes place. All institutions that are accredited today started out as candidates for accreditation. So there are 4 types, and the one that we're going to focus on today is regional. But you have regional, faith-based, private career, and programmatic. And so for your regional, as it would allude to, there are regional agencies throughout the United States that provide accreditation to the institutions that fall within those geographic parameters. Now, what's interesting is that in the summer of 2019, the overseeing body, CHEA, C-H-E-A, determined that a regional accreditor can now review institutions outside of its geographical boundaries. And we've already had a few institutions pursuing accreditation with different regional accreditors. In terms of faith-based, there's about 450, between 450 and 500, it fluctuates, institutions that would fall in this range. And then in terms of programmatic, every program from business-related programs to health-related programs pursue programmatic accreditation in order to receive licensure or a stamp or quality approval to give them a marketing or a competitive edge. And so here you can see the current 6 regional accreditors for the United States. Now, the numbers that you see beside the accreditor's abbreviation, those are the number of institutions, and these will constantly fluctuate. Between 2016 and the time that this video was recorded, all of these had fluctuated. But this gives you an idea about the states that they typically serve. Now, again, as CHEA had declared in the summer of 2019, state institutions can pursue accreditation from a regional accreditor that doesn't inherently represent their state. And for example, if you have an institution in Kentucky, but you have branch campuses in other states, generally your regional accreditor will do the review, oversee the review, even for extending branch campuses that might be out of their geographical territory. Now, what's unique about these regional accreditors, all of them except one will review technical colleges, community colleges, and four-year institutions, both private, not-for-profit, private, for-profit, different types of four-year institutions like Regional Comprehensive, Research One, Flagship, except one. If you'll look over in California, and this territory represents California, Hawaii, and the Pacific Islands, the Western Association of Schools and Colleges only looks at four-year institutions. The other accrediting body is the Accrediting Commission for Community and Junior Colleges. And combined, they represent the territories of, again, California, Hawaii, and the Pacific Islands. Now, at Murray State University, our regional accreditor is the Southern Association of Colleges and Schools. And when you visit this website, there's a lot of great information. When you visit this website, there's a lot of great information out here. You can find information about directory if you needed to make a phone call or needed to have a particular question if you were involved in the review. But I always enjoy going to the institution database. You can look at a particular state and see each institution's accreditation status, what particular level of review, depending on your institutional type, will depend on your level of review. You can visit their website. And usually you'll see the institutions listed on here as having a status of accredited. But every once in a while, you'll find one that has a warning or a public sanction. And you can click on that institution and read the accreditation action and disclosure statement. And we'll look at that a little bit later to find out why they were flagged by SACS. All regional accreditors provide this information on their website. So as I mentioned, all regional accreditation is regulated through CHIA, which is recognized by the Department of Education. The Department of Education does not oversee accreditation. It's very important that you understand that. If you had me for higher ed law, you know that it is a responsibility of the state and the federal government is not involved. But inadvertently they are, because they are the ones who issue Title IV financial aid. So the regional accreditor will make a judgment, and we'll learn about that a little bit later in this presentation. And that judgment, if there are no sanctions, will be reported to CHIA. CHIA will then in there share that information with the Department of Education, and the Department of Education will identify that institution as having the adequate status needed in order to issue Title IV federal financial aid. If there are sanctions in the judgment, and again we'll talk about the judgment a little bit later in this video, then that information is not immediately shared with CHIA and therefore not immediately shared with the Department of Education, and the institution is given an opportunity to correct any kind of sanctions. There are 12 different standards that the regional accreditors review for. Some review for as little as 4, some review for more than 4. And basically the reviews or the standards exemplify the quality that we talked about earlier that an institution provides. And so there are a series of standards: administration, effectiveness, faculty, a number of different standards that each accreditor deems as important, and that's what institutions are reviewed on.